So, as we've been covering the Arizona Senate race, we can tell that things would be really narrow, and frankly, things might be coming into a very tragic close for people like Kari Lake in the Senate. It seems like she is trailing Ruben Gallego by a degree to which people didn't really see coming. A lot of people, frankly, mostly thought that she was out of the race to begin with, and I rightfully predicted it'd be close either way. Though it seems like, however close it may be, it's leaning blue for now. As you can see here on the right of the screen, you'll notice that Kari Lake is behind Ruben Gallego by 1.6 points. That is too big of a lead to really surmount. A lot of the people in the news already in the mainstream have already called it the Hill. The Decision Desk HQ, which is less liberal, have already called the race for Ruben Gallego. And it is somewhat too close to call even for me, but I will tell you that it's leaning towards a very nasty direction. Now, if we look at the polls, we probably shouldn't be too surprised. Gallego was leading by 2.6 on election day, and he is right now leading by 1.1. Now, it could still get more narrow, and in fact, Arizona has a provision to where if a race is less than half of a percent for a candidate, it goes into an automatic recount. But that being said, I doubt that really even fixes anything, and I'll even show you that Kari Lake is right now shilling Turning Point curing for ballots. The deadline for that is in a few hours here in Arizona. The problem with Kari Lake, though, is that she's projected to lose by about 20 to 40,000 ballots. The curable ballots, and that really means, and this is jargon, very niche, I know, but curing a ballot basically is going to somebody and telling them, like, hey, your signature doesn't match this signature, or some other little technicality. There's a typo in something they fill out in their information. And then you go and you manually fix all of them. There's only about 10,000 cases of that out of millions of ballots. And so there really isn't much of a chance to recoup whatever loss she has by curing the ballots, nor will she likely even qualify for recounting the votes. And even recounting doesn't really do much because, as we know, in 2020, they did a recount in Arizona, and that didn't really change the result much. Because if we're looking at, alleged improprieties in the election, they're not done by recounts where you would catch them. You would catch them via signature cross-checking by saying, well, this was harvested from X and then Z, and then there was a chain of custody issue. But those don't really get approached and touched by a recount. And so I think Kari Lake is pretty much toast for all intents and purposes. Now, don't get me wrong. The current Republican, who's not even going to be in office come January, I think his name is Stephen Richer. This guy is anti-MAGA. He hates Kari Lake. And so you could say, well, he's in charge of Maricopa County's voting. And so therefore, there's some sort of bias. And obviously that can be true. But then again, how the hell are we going to remedy that? So that's why I'm telling you it's pretty bad news out of the Grand Canyon state. And what is also stupefying to me, of course, is that Kari Lake, again, is at 1.4 million votes. But if you look at Donald Trump, he is leading Arizona. He has 1.586 million votes. So basically, what I mean to tell you here is that Donald Trump is winning Arizona by 6% right now, and Kari Lake is down by 1.6. Kari Lake somehow is underperforming Donald Trump by 8, which I didn't see coming. Everybody thought, oh, Trump is a stronger candidate in Arizona than is even Kari Lake. And I agreed. But then I thought, well, if Trump wins Arizona I officially predicted by 7, I believe. So wasn't I very spot on, by the way? Anyway, so Donald Trump is up by several points, and yet Kari Lake still loses. It's really hard to watch. But it just proves that there is a concept of ticket splitting. And we're going to look into that because I think a lot of Republicans, unfortunately, will say, well, if Trump got X amount of votes, why didn't they all just vote for Trump down ballot? And there's a lot of good reasons. Think about it this way. Imagine all the Latino support in Arizona and other states. Think of all the new young black men that voted for Trump. Do you think they give a crap about the Senate? No, they don't. Like, disproportionately, they just don't. These low propensity voters that actually drop their ballot off early in person, do you think they really care about the Senate? They don't. Did those people probably just fill out Trump on top of the ticket and then just leave the other 2 pages blank because Arizona does have 2 pages? Yeah. And do you think they really went through the effort of going through all the ballot initiatives in the back? Think about it. The pro-abortion ballot initiative, Prop 139 in Arizona, won by like 20 percentage points, even though Trump carried the state. Why is that? Probably because they don't care about everything that's tertiary to the actual election itself. And so now we face ourselves with a candidate in Kari Lake who apparently could not even get within 5 points of a shadow of Trump to even use the coattails to win the election. Okay. And the reason why I'm a little upset is because when you look at a place like Wisconsin, Trump won the state of Wisconsin officially by 1 point. But then when you look at the Wisconsin election for Senate, Tammy Baldwin, the Democrat, only wins by 1 point. And so, yeah, Eric Hovde underperformed Trump, and that was expected, but only by less than 2%. You go over to Michigan, where Alyssa Slotkin beat Mike Rogers by zero point 0.3. You go to the federal general election, and you see that Trump wins Michigan by 1.4. So basically, like Hovde, Rogers did less than 2 points worse than Trump. Yes, they both lost, like Kari Lake, but to be clear, they underperformed by 2 points. Kari Lake somehow underperformed by like 8. What the hell? Now, this arises concerns of candidate quality. She also lost in 22, and a lot of people in the comments could say, well, Lalo, there's shenanigans there, and frankly, I can believe that. But then again, you should still be winning comfortably. Arizona 22, that's a red wave election purportedly. It ought to be a cozy win. You should be winning by 5. In Arizona, in this case, had you elected somebody else, Mark Lamb, the sheriff, anybody, I would have won the Senate seat, actually. Frankly, if you just put in my Hispanic last name and that's it, if you put in Marco Rubio, you put in a Rick Scott, you put in some generic 60-year-old white guy, he wins in the Senate. And sure, they'll underperform Trump. Yeah, of course. Everybody does. Trump carried the entire Republican Party that's been dying, and thanks to him, it's been revived. But what we don't need is people that are going to just fumble it. I just don't, I cannot help but be upset. I cannot help but be so upset. So upset. Think about it. Okay, you look at Pennsylvania. Trump wins the state of Pennsylvania by 2.1%. Okay, now you look at the Senate level in the biggest state, insofar as the 7 swing ones, and you look here, and Dave McCormick has barely won the state of Pennsylvania by 0.6. Again, he underperforms Trump by about 1.6, kind of like the guys in Michigan and Wisconsin. And yet still, he beats Bob Casey by 0.6 percentage points. Now, Bob Casey is a strong candidate, ancestral legacy with his father being a prior governor and a reputation as a moderate Democrat that worked with Trump on the tariffs and a couple of key issues for Pennsylvania voters. And yet still, Dave McCormick beat Bob Casey. Okay, so you cannot tell me, oh, but Ruben Gallego's such a strong candidate. Really? Really? And then even beside that, there's another issue. And you know what? I'll give Kari some cover here. When it came down to Arizona, Mitch McConnell, who is probably one of the most contemptible politicians of the last 25 years, though I have not even lived that long, but I'm just guessing, and I think you'd agree in chat. Mitch McConnell had Kari Lake, did not give her money. He spent millions of dollars, gave tens of millions of dollars to Larry Hogan in Maryland, and let's look how that worked out for Larry Hogan. Oh, well, won't you look at that? Look at that state. Angela also Brooks beat Larry Hogan 53-44. The guy lost by 9. Okay? So, yes, he should have given that money in Maryland and given it to Kari, and she would have won. I promise. Okay? He could have not spent money elsewhere. We could have not spent money on Florida. We could have given that to Arizona. We could have saved the money from Texas and put it in Nevada. I get it. But that still does not excuse the fact that Kari Lake should have won this, okay? This is, again, very, very disappointing because I, honest to God, thought she had a great shot. And I was pretty much correct. My basic idea was, and I was right about the election more than anybody would ever give me credit for because I'm a savant, but I will tell you, my logic was, well, if Trump wins Arizona by upwards of 6, how the hell is she going to do worse than this -6? And she somehow did it. She somehow did it, guys. I mean, this is realistically akin to if your team's up 2 touchdowns at halftime and you lose somehow by 1 point at the end. It's like, okay. Not clutch. Whew. Okay, one last point to really just drive this home. We see that in Nevada, a heartbreaking loss for Sam Brown, a veteran of the Middle Eastern conflicts, frankly, was disfigured in war. He lost by 1.5 to Jackie Rosen. Now, keep this in mind. Donald Trump won the state of Nevada generally by about 3 points. So there was an underperformance of Sam Brown by 4.5, which is still less than the 8-point difference for Kari Lake. Okay? So think about it. Sam Brown, who none of you guys knew existed prior to this year, somehow outperformed Kari Lake by 3 proportionately. Why? Think about it. As a candidate, you want name ID. What is that? Name ID, folks. You need name identification. People need to know who you are. If you're somebody who almost won governor in 22, most people in my state of Arizona know who you are. So for her to still do 3 points worse than Sam Brown, who literally has a disfigured face and nobody knew existed, is such a rejection. It's disgusting, actually. I find it pathetic. This is heartbreaking for Kari Lake, and it should be, because this is such an underperformance. And you could attribute it to a lot of things. McConnell should have given her money. She should have done a better job in the debate. Not have the whole gaffe with calling IVF UVF and a myriad of different things. She should have clobbered Rubin. I would have. Anyways. Oof. Oh, man, I'm so upset. Anyways, we still have 53 Senate seats. It's just that we could have had one more had. Okay, anyways, guys. Okay. Seething aside, because, it sucks that we're going to have a Democrat senator in Arizona now for another 6 years. Thank you very much, Kari. But on the flip side, Trump is currently leading Kamala Harris by about 4 million votes in the popular vote and is leading percentage-wise 50.5% to 48%. He's leading by 2.5. Now, the Lalo decision desk, before the election even happened, rewind the tape, folks, I said Trump was going to win the popular vote by 2.5. So, dab. Anyways, like the video if you haven't yet. Subscribe if you haven't gotten the chance to. Comment down below any thoughts you have, and I'll see you on the flip side. Adios.